Hello, guys. Should be a really short one today. Our very last week of notes ever in U.S. history. So um, definitely savor it here as we come to an end here and finish out our curriculum. So with that, we last week we talked about George W. Bush, and we focused primarily on the events after September 11th and how the United States reacted in our war on terror regarding a lot of changes to some of what we call our civil liberties, right? About the rights and freedoms that we have that our government started to surveil us and do a lot of things that they had not done before, and a lot of that stuff was really controversial. But today I actually want to focus on the actual true combat war on terror wars that we fought in. We fought in two organized wars, although we have definitely had military conflicts in a lot of different countries as part of the global war on terror. But most specifically today, we're going to talk about the war in Afghanistan. The war in Afghanistan was the first country that we invaded as a result of September 11th. That is because Afghanistan was where Al Qaeda was located, and our intelligence led us to believe that and told us that Al Qaeda was responsible for the attacks on September 11th. And that they had been stationed in Afghanistan. Now, here's where Afghanistan is. It's still the Middle East. It's still a Muslim country. But it's much closer to Asia. You can see here's the western part of China right here. It's right here. Here's India. So it's much closer to Asia. Here's Iran we talked about. Iraq is over here. Okay. Now, here's Osama bin Laden. This is who our intelligence said carried out the attack. He had been kind of ramping up attacks against the United States. Now, kind of some political background here in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, we actually had helped at one point. That was because when all of these countries were part of the Soviet Union in the 1980s had actually invaded into Afghanistan. And as part of our, anti-Soviet Union mentality, we actually helped provide guns and weapons to a group of fighters called the Taliban. Okay, now the Taliban, after the Soviets are driven out, the Taliban kind of start to take over the rest of Afghanistan, and they form a government in Afghanistan that is based on extremely strict Islamic law. Okay, this strict Islamic law, things like women have to have their faces covered, that they cannot, drive a car, they can't own property, that at each time of prayer, you have to stop what you're doing and pray. So very, very strict Muslim laws in these countries, in Afghanistan specifically. As part of this, the Taliban allowed Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda to set up operations in Afghanistan. And with that, he basically was running like terrorist training camps in Afghanistan. And eventually that led to our attack on September 11th. So the United States decided to invade Afghanistan as a way to, one, capture Osama bin Laden, destroy Al Qaeda, but also remove the Taliban from power in Afghanistan and establish a democracy there. You can see Afghanistan is extremely mountainous and is incredibly difficult terrain to invade. I mean, I think the 80s, the Soviet Union couldn't do it. It's kind of a myth, but it's sort of true at the same time, that the last time Afghanistan was conquered by a foreign power was in Alexander the Great in like 400 BC, right? So this is something that is very difficult country to capture due to its mountainous regions. With that, the war in Afghanistan will last for over 10 years, even longer. We will eventually be able to break up Al Qaeda out of Afghanistan. We will try to find Osama bin Laden. We thought we had him in caves in one of these mountains, but turns out he had actually escaped to Pakistan, which is right next to Afghanistan. He was in Islamabad. In 2011, U.S. intelligence said that he was in Islamabad in a complex there. And so our Navy SEAL Team 6 attacked the compound and killed him. Now, the war in Afghanistan is officially sort of over because we're not truly fighting there, but we still have troops there. And the war in Afghanistan is not it's not a country right now that's very stable. You can see that in white, the white areas of Afghanistan are controlled by the United States allies in Afghanistan. The government of Afghanistan, the democracy of Afghanistan, controls that. But you can see in blue, there are still many parts of the country that the Taliban still control. And frankly, it might stay like this for, I mean, it's so hard to try and capture stuff. So Afghanistan is still a very, very contentious place. And the United States, like I said, not officially actively fighting, but we basically are still there assisting the Afghani government. And so, yeah, I'm trying to think. Afghanistan ultimately will become actually our nation's longest war. It will exceed the Vietnam War in terms of length. The Vietnam War was only from 1963, 65-ish area to 1973, 75. Whereas in Afghanistan, we've been well over 10 years of fighting in Afghanistan. And with that, part of our global war on terror. All right, guys. See ya.